Good morning, members of Parliament, support staff, visitors in the Public Tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, those viewing via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to public meeting number 8 for today, Tuesday, December 12, 2023. I would like to give a special welcome to the Council of Ministers, of which Minister of Finance, Mr. Ardwell Irion is here, and Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson. We have established a quorum of 8 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of lateness from MP Sarah Westcott Williams. I would like to congratulate a staff member of the Secretariat of the Parliament, Ms. Cheryl Dangle-Ben York, for capturing the title of the Face of Woohoo, Face of Women of Hearts Awards for 2023-24, which is a speaking extravagance that took place in London, England. I encourage her and all other women to continue to inspire and empower young girls and women in St. Martin in word and actions as we continue to build our country. Are there any notifications? No need. Today we have as an agenda point 1, incoming documents, agenda point 2, draft national ordinance laying down rules on higher education and research, higher education ordinance under document IS/431/2022-23, dated February 8, 2023, parliamentary year 2022-23-165. Agenda point 3, draft national ordinance amending the National Ordinance Budget 2023, National Ordinance Budget Amendment 2023, parliamentary year 2023-24-173 under document IS/228/2023-2024, dated November 21st, 2023. We go to the agenda point 1. Incoming documents. All members have received the list of incoming documents and the proposals for further handling under document IS/136-254 of the parliamentary year 2023. Are there any comments or proposals on the list as presented? No member would like to speak. Thank you, members of Parliament. If not, the list and the proposal for handling are approved. The agenda point 2 will be handled separately as Minister of Education is not present here. He had sent his absentee. So we'll go over to the agenda point 3. Agenda point 3, draft national ordinance amending the National Ordinance Budget 2023, National Ordinance Budget Amendment 2023, Parliamentary Year 2023-24-173 under document IS/228/2023-24, dated November 21st, 2023. Parliament received the draft national ordinance amending the National Ordinance Budget 2023 on November 21st, 2023. All members have received a copy of the draft national ordinance, and it can be found in Parliament General Team. A Central Committee meeting was held on December 5th and 6th, 2023 on the subject matter, in which the members of Parliament posed their questions and the Minister of Finance answered these questions on behalf of the government. A report has been made on the deliberations in the Central Committee and was sent to the government, as well as to the members. The government answered this report with a so-called note following the final report under document IS/270/2023-24 dated December 11, 2023. Today in the public meeting handling of the draft budget amendment 2023, all ministers will give a brief presentation concerning their ministry. When the ministers are done with their presentation, I will give the floor to the members of parliament to pose their questions on the budget, after which the minister will answer the questions posed by members of parliament. At this time, I will first like to give the floor to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Ardwell Irion, for his introductory remarks and our presentation. Minister of Finance. You have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the honourable members of Parliament. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, we will be presenting the 2023 draft budget amendment. I'm here to present to you the amended budget for the year 2023. In this presentation, we will go over the insight into the major amendments and also make the link to the actual figures based on the last Q3 report. In this presentation, I will also provide insight into the following processes of the budget amendment and the reasons for the delay. I'll also go over the major adjustments made to the amended budget compared to the initial budget. And lastly, I'll also touch upon the capital expenditure for the year including 2023. The budget 2023 was approved by the Parliament on March 31st, 2023. We then received Article 12 from the CFT, stating that the multi-annual budgets 2024, 2025, and 2026 had to show surpluses instead of being balanced in 2024 and 2025, where we had surplus starting in 2026. In addition to that, they also stated that we had to include a multi-year investment plan in the budget for the years 2024 through 2026. We had many talks with the CFT in which we made it clear that we deemed it unfair that we have to amend the entire budget 2023 to adjust the multi-year aspect, as this can be a requirement for adjustment in 2024. We clearly stated the budget is a projection, and it included the projections at the time of the compilation of the budget, which of course changes if you review the budget months after based on the updated information. Nevertheless, they were adamant that the multi-year aspect had to be adjusted in the budget for the year 2023. However, they included in their advice that this amendment should not delay the receipt of capital expenditures as they were approved for being sufficiently substantiated. We also clarified that this adjustment of 2023 will delay the 2024, as the team will now have to move their focus to 2023 and then back to budget 2024. Given the approval of the capital expenditure, we started this process at once to be able to receive the loan for the capital expenditure of 60.8 million guilders. The request for the loan was sent to the Central Bank on the 10th of May, 2023, and I'll go into this topic a little further on in my presentation. Based on the remarks from the CFT, we immediately updated the budget for the year 2023. It was even approved by the COM on June 6, 2023. However, when we sent it to the governor, it was returned as the Landsverordening and the Memorie van Toelichting had to be adjusted. This was a unique budget adjustment, as in actuality, no adjustments were made to the 2023 figures, only the multi-year figures which related to the years 2024, 2025. For the result and the multi-year capital investment. Once returned from the governor, we noted that because it still had to go to the Council of Advice, it would not make it on time to be handled in Parliament prior to the recess. Because it was not handled prior to the recess, this led to the fact that the time had elapsed and we became aware of the more updated realistic information, and as such, the budget 2023 was further delayed as more changes had to be made. Matters that led to the further delay of the budget 2023 were the refinancing of the loan for the ENYA discussion and the inclusion of the calculation of the effect of the changes in the justice function to the multi-year aspect of the budget 2023. The updated information, the actuals based on the Q1 and Q2 actual report, which then had to also be included in the amended budget for 2023. I'll now move on to the multi-annual budget. As I mentioned before, the advice on the CFT included two matters of adjustment. One, the multi-year results, as they wanted to see the positive results of the year 2024, and two, a multi-year investment plan. In this overview, the adjustment to the multi-year result is shown as also in contrary to the previous budget for the year 2023, and we also have a positive result of this year of 1 million guilders, if you look at the graph. In 2024 and 2025, we have a positive result in the amended budget of 2 million guilders, and in 2026, we have an expected positive result of 6 million guilders, which was also already stated in the budget 2023. As we informed CFT, budgets are prone to change and will change based on new information received. In the current budget for the year 2024, which is on its way to Parliament, we now have a profit, well, not a profit, we have a surplus of 1 million guilders for the year 2024. This is a result of the refinancing interest and is still prone to changes, as I previously mentioned. At the time we were making the budget for the year 2023, the impact of the justice function book changes was still a bit unclear. Also, the arrangements for the refinancing of the loans were unclear, and the impact of these developments on the actuals for the year 2023 were all unknown at the time, which was the reason why we decided to, in a conservative manner, state the balanced budgets for the years 2024 and 2025. Nevertheless, based on what we know now, the positive developments of the year 2023, we are in alignment with the positive result for the year 2024 and 2025, and such has compiled this information as requested to the CFT. We now look at the revenue of the government. We will go into the actual adjustments to the figures of the year 2023. First, I'll begin with the revenue. The total increase in the revenue in the amended budget 2023 compared to the initial budget is approximately 23 million guilders. This initial budget, we expected a revenue of 495 million guilders for the year, and in the amended budget, we expected a revenue of 518 million guilders. This has been adjusted based on the actual figures in the quarterly reports that have been sent. The amended budget was compiled using the information from the second quarterly report, and as per today, the third quarterly report was issued, which of course now has more recent information than information for our actuals. In the third quarter report, we expect a result at the end of the year of 5 million guilders. However, as stated in the amended budget for the year 2023, there are certain items that are not always fully incorporated in the quarterly reports, as they are made aware of at a later time. For example, certain expenses. As of Q3 for the year 2023, we commenced in issuing the quartile rapportage in English, as we deem it very important that it is comprehensible to more individuals. The outlook for the year 2023, as included in Q3, is a revenue of 519 million guilders, which aligns with the revenue in our amended budget of 518 million guilders. The significant adjustments which we clarified is the addition of 23 million guilders in the amended budget 2023 for the year compared to the initial budget 2023 revenue. And it's the following breakdown. An extra 11 million guilders in taxes, 9.6 million guilders in other revenue. The increase in taxes is mainly due to an increase of 14 million guilders in profit tax, 4 million guilders in wage tax, and 3 million guilders in income tax, which is offset by a decrease of 10 million guilders in the tourist tax. The tourist tax was initially budgeted to go in effect on July 1st, 2023. However, this did not happen. And this 10 million guilders was covered by increases in other taxes, which led to a reclassification of the taxes, income, and even an additional income of 11 million guilders for the year 2023. The increase in other revenue is due to mainly increase in other revenue drivers such as driver's license and various other fees at the census office. In addition, an additional 1 million guilders has been budgeted for the funds to receive from the EU to finance specific projects as the early warning system and the other project for the single-use plastics. We'll now move on to the expenditures. In line with the revenue, there's also an increase in expenses of approximately 22 million guilders. This leads to a net result of 1 million guilders for the year 2023. This increase in expenses is primarily due to an increase in the personnel cost of 5.7 million guilders and a material cost of 16 million guilders. The personnel cost increase is due to the increase of the actual cost of the OZR, which is approximately 10 million guilders higher than initially budgeted. 5 million of this increase is incorporated in the personnel costs and 5 million in the social provisions which relate to the medical assistance. The remaining 12 million guilders increase mainly due to an increase of 8 million guilders in goods and services, which 4.5 million relates to goods and services under the Ministry of Rummy, 1.8 million relates to costs associated with the revenue received from the EU, and 1.6 relates to the increase in costs on the Justice for the SBIR software, which is used within the law enforcement chain in the islands of Aruba, Bonaire, Statia, Saba, and St. Martin. In addition to the above, we receive a definitive calculation from the justice pertaining to the function book, which was presented to the governor on August 18th, 2023. As these payments will be made in installments, it was key to include these in the multi-year budgets, as such amounts pertaining to specific years were included in the multi-year aspect of the budget. Now move on to the capital expenditure, which we also call the CapEx. With regard to the capital investments for the year 2023, no changes had been made. The total CapEx remains unadjusted at 90.1 million guilders. In November 2023, we finally received the 60.8 million guilders requested. In the initial budget, we had an amount of 74.1 million guilders because we were unsure if the Netherlands was going to pay for the phase 1 of the prison. However, phase 1 was paid for by the Netherlands, and we only needed a request of 60.8 million guilders. For the remaining investments, as the remaining 29 million was covered by the Netherlands, which included the investment for the tax system and the prison phase 1. As stated previously, on May 30th, the letter was sent to request a loan by the central bank. However, on the 31st of May, we were informed that the process of the loan request had changed since COVID. As such, a risicoregeling, which we also call in English a risk assessment, had to be made and approved by the Council of Ministers of the Kingdom, and also the first and second chamber. Given the recess, also in the Netherlands, the approval came in September. After the approval, the central bank still had to officially put out the release for the inscription to the loan, which was done at the end of October 2023. This all led to us finally receiving the capital expenditure loan on our bank account on St. Martin Day, November 11, 2023. We did not expect this process to take so long, and I'll even say our counterparts in the Netherlands didn't expect the process to take so long because they were also basically new to this process, the updated processes also. Given the fact that the CapEx was received at the end of the year, we had to include all these investments in the budget for the year 2024 in order to secure the execution of them, as they have to be included in the budget of the specific year in order for them to be executed. In addition to the above, however, while waiting for the loan, we started the process of preparing for the actual investments. As such, some items were able to start. And we have, for example, the Vrouwenvillage, which is being done by the KNVB, which is the Dutch Football Federation. They are the ones installing the new football field to ensure that we have the most up-to-date, high-quality professional football field turf. In addition to that, have supported us with similar to our track. So in a few months, we'll have a brand new track and a brand new football field. The process for the purchasing of laptops, computers, screens, and other such IT components for the whole civil service already has started. And that is also coming from the capital expenditure budget. We haven't had what I would consider a tech refresh in government in more than a decade, I believe. So I think this is something that is very necessary. So I'm also very proud of that. And the CapEx also is heavily focused on infrastructure, dirt road, hard surfacing, and the resurfacing of roads in general, all the main roads. This process has also already started. As you can see, Orange Grove already has started, and a couple other roads will begin as of next week. So again, I'm very happy to have been able to secure the capital expenditure loan of the 90.1 million gills for the country of St. Martin. Oh, in addition to that, we are now, we've already finalized the process and awarded for the financial management system of government. And we are now busy finalizing the process of the tax system. Again, a very outdated system, so I'm also very happy that we were able to present this and deliver this on time due to the support of us having approved capital expenditure funds. I'll now go to the conclusion. Oh, and I miss a very key component for the CapEx also, which would also be the school repairs. So we have the school repairs also that falls under the CapEx, and that's the majority of the CapEx when it comes to infrastructure. Conclusion. In conclusion, I would like to thank you for your attention, members of Parliament. I'm very happy to see the positive developments to our economy, which in turn leads to a positive impact on our budget and its finances. The budget for the year 2024 is currently at the Council of Advice, and it will be sent to Parliament as soon as it is returned. We look forward to any additional questions you may have pertaining to the budget amendment for the year 2023. And I will now give the floor over to my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, to prepare her give her presentation actually on justice matters, as a significant amount of questions in the CC were posed to the Ministry of Justice, and she thought it prudent to be able to answer these herself. Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Minister of Finance. And now I give the floor to Minister of Justice. I would like to adjourn for 2 minutes. Meeting adjourned.
I don't charge out your phones?
And I would like to give the floor to now Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of Parliament, Secretary General of Parliament, Secretary General of the Ministry of Finance and Justice, colleague ministers, my support staff, those of Parliament, the listening and viewing audience, and a special good morning to all senior citizens. One of the Ministry's 2023 policy priorities and my personal goal set from the onset of taking up this position as Minister has been to strengthen our House from within, to ensure our effectiveness in the execution of our mission. There is a dynamic management team leading this ministry together with me. The Ministry of Justice is comprised of 9 departments charged with upholding law and order on St. Martin. The Ministry's mission is to create the conditions necessary for maintaining the safety and security of all residents and visitors while guaranteeing legal certainty for our community. Yet, we must recognize and acknowledge that the strength of this ministry is its personnel. Without the men and women both on the front line or providing administrative support, we would not be able to meet the goals. I have dedicated my tenure on addressing the needs of setting right the House of Justice. Today, I would like to keep all abreast of the progress made and the steps ahead. We have achieved, approved, and established the Ministry's function book on December 20th, 2021. The road to that achievement was long, yet after over a decade, it has become completed. Now before us, we aim to achieve the final step, which is to have this approved function book activated with the approval of the 2023 budget amendment. Also hanging on the hinges of this approval is the legal status regulation, including the salary tables for police. In order to achieve this milestone, we are seeking the support of Parliament. We are seeking the support of the Parliament of St. Martin in approving the required amendment to the budget 2023. In alignment with the Kingdom law that governs the national decree with general measures, this is the final pending component necessary in this legislative process, giving His Excellency the Governor the basis to sign, as the financial obligation is thoroughly identified and the required installment amount is captured in this amended budget. The calculations are complete. We have identified the total sum needed, which provided the clarity required in accordance with the Kingdom Act in our financial accountability. We have also executed the process of issuing the placement letters to synchronize the placement process. This process being completed with a letter adjustment pending for just a few members of staff allows for the formal commencement of the individual national decrees to proceed for the signing by the Governor and then I as Minister of Justice, following the enactment of all required legislation in the justice package that is currently at the Cabinet of the Governor. To outline briefly the placement process procedure initiates with the issuance of a placement letter and the progress to the issuance of an individual national decree. Should a staff member disagree with the placement, they are entitled to submit an objection to the placement letter. Similarly, if there is an objection to the national decree, individuals have the option to appeal the issued national decree. We've implemented an additional validation check to enhance accuracy and minimize the necessity for appeals. Although the option for appeals remain open to all, furthermore, the creation of the Appeals and Placement Committee is in place to support the entire procedure. If I may, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be able to highlight a few frequently asked questions, as I believe answers to these will help to address certain concerns. Here are some of the frequently asked questions that we have encountered along this process. Can the Minister give insight how the 44.5 million guilders was derived? The retroactive enforcement of the function book and salary tables allows for the corrective placement of all eligible justice employees, both active and inactive, estimated to some 760 employees. The period of analysis begins from 10-10-10 up to the 31st of December 2023. The rates of the social and pension premiums and wage tax tables during the period that the related salary tables support the cost module. The payroll data and pay slips that has been provided by Antec payroll software system. Also, the placement matrix as delivered from the Human Resources Division of the Ministry of Justice. The placement matrix is derived from information gathered from the personnel files available and any other supportive documentation of the employees reflecting their historical task assignments. This was populated into the matrix under the guidance of the Placement Committee in collaboration with the department's management team. As can be seen on screen, the estimated $44,588,500 has accounted for allowances, overtime, and the social premium and pension premium contribution of both employee and employer. Note that this estimate only becomes final based on the ratified decrees of each eligible person within the scope of 760 persons. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, are you hearing me still clearly? Good, thank you very much. Another frequently asked question, can the minister give insight on the disbursement plan? As can be seen on the screen, per the revised covenant agreement, the disbursement of these retroactive sums is to be handled with annual payments based on the category of the individual employee. On the screen, you will see that each category indicates the number of installment payments based on the range of the total owed to the employee. We have further accounted for the special category of seniors. Those 60 and older are to be disbursed over a maximum of 4 annual installments, regardless to their sum total owed. Can the minister give insight on the budgeting plan for the disbursements? The one-off costs for the retroactive payment of the civil servants, both inactive and active, as a result of the retroactive enforcement of the function book and salary tables to the 10th of October 2010, up to the end of 2023, are estimated at $44,588,500. Based on the estimated impact as of 2024 and the disbursement plan, the budget allocation of $4 to $6 million to accommodate the placement phases is anticipated. In the chart on the screen, we depict a spread of $5 million a year as of 2024 and the anticipated cost for 2023. This clearly shows a possibility to account for the anticipated cost by 2031. However, the ministry continues to work towards improving its income-generating measures. Once our economic realities improve, so will the disbursement plan in relation to what is owed. Can the minister clarify why $3.2 million is budgeted for 2023? The 2023 budget only accounts for the effects of phase 1 of the placement process, which is the placement of the active personnel per 1 January 2023, and thus sufficiently accounts for the needed budget implications of this phase as it will be realized regarding the 2023 expenses. Can the minister give insight on the placement phases and how many are there? As can be seen in this breakdown on screen, there are 4 phases, namely phase 1, active personnel with no objection as per January 1, 2023. Phase 2, active personnel with no objection, correction decrees, period 10-10-10 to 31st of December 2022. Phase 3, inactive personnel with no objection, correction decree period from 10-10-10 to the 31st of December 2022. And 4th, inactive and active personnel with objections. Each stage will result in an approval decree, national decree or LB, triggering the initiation of eligible upcoming payments from individual national decrees that have reached an irrevocable state with no outstanding objections or appeal. When will this happen once the 2023 budget amendment is passed? As this process is a legislative one, we seek that the Budget Amendment 2023 is passed, therein adapting the needed amendment in relation to the debt tally. Then the governor has to ratify by signing the legislative package after this Amendment 2023 budget has been passed. And only then the process of placement and the individual LBAs that follows out of the placement process can continue, starting with phase 1 as indicated above. Each individual LBA is in an irrevocable state, with no objections or appeals are forwarded on for enforcement, followed by the actionable payment derived from the individual LBAs. Can the minister give insight? Is it going to happen in December? Is it going to happen in January? When is it going to happen? Rest assured, we are actively working towards achieving the earliest payment date possible. With the approval of the amended Budget 2023, we will be able to advance the process to His Excellency the Governor. After His Excellency signs the LB-HUM and enacts the LBAs, co-signed by my person as Minister of Justice, the initial batch of LBAs will be promptly dispatched to the Governor, and upon their signed return, the Ministry of Justice will follow suit. We are committed to maintaining an expeditious approach. Rest assured that we are making every effort to facilitate a speedy disbursement process. We have arrived to the finish line, and the team is putting their all into seeing to it that all recipients of retroactive payments begin to receive their installments post-haste. As such, your understanding and cooperation during this process is greatly appreciated. Can the minister give insight if the retroactive corrections have considered overtime and allowances? Are they included in the estimated figure of the 44.5 million guilders? The estimated 44.5 million guilders has indeed accounted for personal allowances, overtime, and the social premiums and pension premium contributions of both employee and employer. Can the minister give insight what the overtime regulation is going to look like? When will it go into effect? On the screen, you will note a comparison of the current regulation for KPSM police officers only as regulated in Article 39. This system is a fixed allowance that doesn't exceed 1,000 guilders. On the right, you will note that the new overtime regulation that shall be applicable to the officers executing police tasks within KPSM, Landsverordening, or the National Detectives, Border Control Division of IPPS. This new system establishes an hourly rate based on the rank of the officer ranging from 20 guilders up to 44 guilders from Monday through Saturday, while a range of 26 guilders up to 58 guilders for Sunday and holidays. These are the changes to the regulations that have been requested by the union representation and supported in the CCSU platform by all unions. Also on the screen, we note the change to the allowance for being on call and dark hours. A special note, the current regulation is applied to all administrative roles, and those regulated under the LMR legal status regulation remain in effect. This is a benefit to all applicable personnel up to scale 9. Note, the new overtime regulation applicable for KPSM, Landsverordening, or National Detectives, Border Control of IBPS, officers of police shall be enforced as soon as the LB-HUM on the legal status regulation for police is enacted and has retroactive enforcement back to the 1st of July 2020. This also was requested by the union representation and supported by my person as minister as well as the Council of Ministers. Can the minister please clarify how the payments that some justice workers received in 2020 and 2023 will be handled? Do they have to pay back? If so, why? All payments that have been made to some justice personnel resulting from the MOU or to those justice personnel who received under the MOU 2019 entered to by the former Minister of Finance, Perry Healings, was made payable to the justice personnel as a salary advance towards their individual corrections in accordance with the agreements made. The payment advancement that have been disbursed in net, as such, no social premiums and no wage tax was withheld. The employees who have received payments have been directly informed that all wages that have been received, including any advance payments, are to be reconciled within the context of the retroactive calculations of their national decree. The final calculation can only be determined after the decree is in an irrevocable state. Simply put, if the employee is owed 100 brutto before reduction of the social pension premiums and wage tax, and he or she receives 10 guilders net, then your balance owed will be reduced with what you have received net. So no, there will be, as far as we can see, no payback unless there's an overpay, and that is still to be determined once we reach to the irrevocable, and that is on an individual basis. Can the minister give insight how justice workers will be able to monitor the payments, disbursements received, and what is still owed? Each LBA issued will ultimately be sent to finance or to the finance ministry through the salary and wages division. The final tally owed will be reconciled and placed on their payslips or the payslips of each employee. In the scenario of an employee is disbursed over multiple annual terms, this accrued balance will remain on the payslip and reduce as the annual payment is disbursed. It is much like in similarity to the fashion as the vacation allowance is now reflected on the payslip and released annually. Can the minister give insight how justice workers will be impacted by the taxes and other social and pension premiums to be withheld? Each employee that is eligible to a retroactive correction shall be subjected to contributions of social and pension premiums over that income. Similarly, the wage tax to be withheld shall be applicable. Please note that each employee can request a special tax rate over this income via the tax inspectorate based on their issued decree. To those who have been granted a special tax rate, this will be communicated to the Salary and Wages Division and applied to that employee's payment. This process is the sole responsibility of the employee to have this formally requested, as the provisions is outlined in the tax legislation of St. Martin. We will be hosting an information session in 2024 with an expert in this field to further equip employees with information on the tax legislation. Mr. Chairman, that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope that I have brought some clarity in my presentation. However, absolutely here for any questions that Parliament may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister of Justice. I now look to my left for members of Parliament to have questions. The allotted speaking time in first round is 30 minutes and 15 minutes in the second round. Yes, MP Grisha Halligan Martin.
Mr. Chairman, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. Just for clarity's sake, so I'm going to sign in and question the Minister of Justice, Minister of Finance. And this is it. So no more presentations for no other minister.
I believe that's how it is, right?
Yes, but you have to answer her via the mic. You don't know.
Yes, MP Grisha Halligan Martin. These are the two presentations, and now all the questions pertaining to any ministry will be directed to Minister of Finance, and he will take back those questions, and the ministries will come back to answer their pertaining ministries. So, who's going to sign in? I see MP Melissa Gums. MP Melissa Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you, Hifir, the honorable ministers here and their support staff, and my colleagues and those joining us. I just have a few questions for this first round immediately following the minister's presentation, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. How far, Minister, through you, Mr. Chair, is the ministry in the process of drafting the requisite LBs for those justice workers that had no objections? If we could get an update as to where you are in the process. Will there be a period provided, and can you state what the period is, to allow persons to verify their proposed owed amount? That's a question that we've been getting from persons related to the process. And in the Central Committee meeting that we had on this amendment, the Minister of Finance had responded to a question about the COLA payment that the ministry announced a short time ago that was still being discussed with the unions. But what would be the impact of this as it relates to those pending LBs and payouts? For education, the Minister of Finance announced that KNVB was installing the new field turf at Rao Village, including the track repairs, but I had a question about the further repairs at that facility, the bleachers, etc., because that's also part of the problematic areas at the Rao Village Sports Complex. And for the Minister of Finance, laptop screens and desktops coming from CAPEX, which I understand because there has been, Parliament also needs a tech refresh, hint, hint. Has there been any consideration towards leasing this equipment with a SLA that would then allow for a tech refresh happening every 6 years, which is usually how it's done in most corporate environments? And for right now, that is it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Melissa Gums. Is there any other person? MP Grisha Halliger Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions for the Minister of Finance. Through you, Mr. Chairman, according to the CFT, the total debt is about 1.2 million guilders, 1.285 million guilders, or 44% of the GDP. What is the projections for the figure for the coming years? What are government's plan to reduce it, if any? Which percentage of the GDP does the government consider acceptable? Is this in line with the RFT? And what is the status of the tax reform improvement process? For the Minister of TIA, through you, Mr. Chairman, I have maybe two questions. Can Parliament receive an itemized overview of all the companies and individuals, those with or without passport, who currently have a bus and taxi license that just received new ones? I want a list of all of them, itemized names, bus number, everything. And what is the status of the path to economic recovery, and will this be implemented too by this minister, seeing that it comes from the same party? I have questions for the Minister of Vrami as well, Mr. Chairman, through you. In light of the recent rockfall close to the harbor, when does the minister intend to follow up on the last year's parliamentary meeting of the Vrami Committee? I mean, it's just recent with Acrobat X. And has government looked into potential liability with regards to the rockfalls and other hazards based on construction? With regarding to the Minister of Justice, Mr. Chairman, I just received her presentation regarding the seniors that are eligible to be paid in 4 installments, Mr. Chairman. Is there a way that we can receive an overview of all the seniors that are listed to be paid the amount of seniors, just, I don't need their names, but just the listing of the amount of seniors, and just an overview of the age bracket. What's the eldest seniors that's waiting to be paid for the 4 installments that is assigned to them. Also, the Minister of Justice mentioned through you, Mr. Chairman, that provided as economic development improvement, that the economic improves, that the disbursement will also improve. I want her to give me a breakdown of what she means by that. Would that mean that they'll be paid in less installments if the economic development improve? And what exactly does she mean through you, Mr. Chairman, by economic development? What are we looking at? What are we gauging with the economy that would say, okay, we'll cut down on your installments? Is that what the Minister of Justice means by that? Also, the placements. Has everyone thus far received placements? It's stated earlier that 700 and something plus people are pending to get paid. Has all of them received their placements? And let's say, reality right now, how many of those that received their placements has no objectives? How many are right now have objected what they received? So I want to know how, if all 700 and something people has received their placements by now. I also would like to know through you, Mr. Chairman, how many of the 700 and something are right now has objected what they received? And I think I will leave it with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heiliger Martin. The next person I see is MP Christopher Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. The Honorable Minister of Finance and Justice, their support staff, my colleagues, and everyone who's watching by which means. Mr. Chairman, I want to make something clear, and my apologies to the ministers if they felt that it was pertaining to them in our discussion before the meeting started. We received a presentation today, 20 past 10, by the Minister of Justice. And I am to question the Minister of Justice on her presentation today. So I'm asking you, Mr. Chairman, how do you expect me to do that on the presentation of the Minister of Justice? How do you expect me to do that? I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to the Minister, I'm speaking to the President of Parliament. The presentation that the Minister of Justice presented was sent to the members of Parliament today, in relation to the questions we asked in the Central Committee. But she gave a new presentation today. Now, am I to question the Minister on the presentation that she gave today? That's what I'm asking the President of Parliament. Yeah.
Are you, MP Emmanuel, are you using your speaking time or are you asking me a question?
You can take the speaking time or use it for whatever.
So I would just let you know, MP Emmanuel, that this is a budget meeting, and for budget meeting, you have to be prepared from all angles to ask every minister whatever questions you have.
That's not the question I asked you.
To make it easy, Minister of Justice gave a presentation to clarify whatever is being understood by people. I think that was a good presentation for we all to know. That was just an extra benefit from her side, I believe, to clarify a lot of things.
I am
but
asking
you have,
Mr.
you
Chairman,
have
when
all
it is
the
we're
rights
supposed
to
to
ask
receive
all the
this
questions.
information.
MP Manuel, if you speak, then I won't speak. If I speak, please
Go
stay
ahead.
calm. I'm saying, and in a budget meeting, you have all the rights to ask all the questions to all ministers pertaining, whether they are present here or not.
No.
The Minister
No,
of
Mr.
Finance will
Point
take back
of order.
the questions.
Point of order. Point of order. Mr. President, in the convocation that you sent out to the members of Parliament, it was made clear that the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education would be coming today. The Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education would have been coming today. But even if that's not the case, we receive a presentation. Shouldn't we have received it in a timely manner so that we can ask questions? But we receive it today. I received it today. I received the presentation today. So I'm asking you, you can go around and say that it's a budget and the ministers can come in, we should be prepared. That's the point exactly I'm trying to make. That's the point exactly I'm trying to make. It can't be that we don't get the information beforehand to want to ask and make questions to ask the minister. That's what I'm saying. The presentation wasn't sent to us, and a minister is confirming that the presentation was sent to Parliament yesterday. Yesterday. We received the presentation today, 20 past 10. So that's why I'm asking you the question, how am I to ask the minister questions relating to the presentation that she just delivered? No, you can't tell me the second round. I cannot use my second round for that. No. I cannot do that. Mr. Chairman. I cannot do that. The second round is to ask other questions. Clarifications is to ask questions that you did not understand or you don't fully comprehend from what was asked and answered. So you can't tell me the second round. Through you, Mr. Chairman, because it seems as if you can't answer the questions either. I'll ask the minister a few questions that I jot down quickly based on the minister wanted to, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Honorable Minister of Finance, how does the proposed payment goes for the justice workers who are not a member of the union and want their pay in full? The other one, when will the individual employees know the total amount that they are owed by the Ministry of Justice? Also, what about justice workers that are not represented by the union? Does the agreement with the union covers these workers? I'm just asking you these questions, and these are the questions that were sent to me because I have questions that I had put based on the answers I received from what was asked in the Central Committee, but I didn't come with them because I came with the intention to ask the questions to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education based on what was sent to us from Parliament. Also, I would like to ask this question also through you, Mr. Chairman. In relation to the 44 million that is mentioned in the presentation earlier, who exactly is covered? Who all is covered in this 44 million? Because we see what is outlined is 750,000 for police. I stand to be corrected. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I stand to be corrected. So who all is covered in the 44 million? And the 750,000 for police does that include the retroactive, or does that include retroactive and what is owed to them presently? If you don't, you understand? Through you, Mr. Chairman, Minister, you understand? Yeah, okay, thank you. And also, I would like to ask through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Honorable Minister of Justice. In discussion with the 44 million amendment for the 2023 budget, the latest presentation that you gave a while ago that we just received, was this discussed with the unions? That presentation, have you had a discussion with the unions? I thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Christopher Emmanuel. The next person I have is MP George Francois. MP George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the Chair, my colleagues in Parliament, Honorable Ministers of Finance and Justice and their support staff, persons viewing, and those who are following by the available medium. Mr. Chairman, let me start by saying that I want to applaud the work that has been done by Minister of Finance and Justice, and specifically, Mr. Chairman, the issue of the details that were given to us this morning. Mr. Chairman, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, a lot of information, Mr. Chairman. And I think that this should not be overlooked. It should not be overlooked, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we all know, and again, it's always good to go back a bit, of the history of what has taken place in regards to the issue of the police officers and all those who have been affected by the function book and everything not being in place. We have to remind persons that successive governments, because of the instability, these things were not able to be settled or put in place. And now, today, we find ourselves, finally, Mr. Chairman, coming to the point where the Justice Ministry, the officers, those who are affected, will be getting what they deserve. And yes, I understand the issue of politics, Mr. Chairman, but you know, I've always told myself there's a time for it and there's a time not for it. And we should always put ourselves in the place of the individuals who are faced with a task to do this job. I've said it more than once on this floor. Who is in the kitchen feels the heat. And sometimes when I'm discussing with some friends of mine, especially those who know about boxing and so on, that you can talk a lot on the outside because you're on the outside. When you're inside and you get hit, Mr. Chairman, it's a different story altogether. I can talk about being hit because I was in the ring, so I know how it feels. I'm using this analogy to say that it is easy to criticize and say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, Mr. Chairman. But what would you have done had you been in that situation? And this is why, yes, you're going to say, yes, is your government, your support. Yes, Mr. Chairman, because why? The circumstances under which the National Alliance-led government came into office, Mr. Chairman, was something else. And don't say 4 years. It is not 4 years, my friends. Because if you look at COVID-19 and Ukraine war and those things and stuff like that, Mr. Chairman, and Irma, Mr. Chairman, it's not 4 years, my friend. Barely 2 years, Mr. Chairman. So they can smile, they can nod and criticize and talk about this and that, the government, XYZ, whatever, Mr. Chairman. Say whatever you want. The facts are there, Mr. Chairman, that this government is finally getting done, Mr. Chairman, what had to be done years ago. And for that, Mr. Chairman, call it politics or not, should be applauded, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, on another note, you know, I always have to mention the issue of the CFT, because I always said it was up to me, and I'm sure my colleague agrees with me, I'll scrap them completely. Because up to now, I don't find anything that they do or instructions that they give are to help us in St. Martin. It does not benefit us. I read a piece where the State Secretary Van Huffelen totally rejects Aruba's suggestion about maintaining the control of the finances in the national ordinance. She wants it to be taken to a kingdom level, Mr. Chairman. Well, let me say good luck to her with that, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. Chairman, back to us here in St. Martin. Let me say this. I saw that it's about some 40 or 45 million guilders, and honestly, if it was up to me, and it's not up to me, but it's up to all of us, if I had that power, Mr. Chairman, those funds that we're paying the Dutch government every year, 12 or 13 million, I would tell me something, hold off for a while, I'll put that on an indefinite hold while I pay my police officers, Mr. Chairman, and then after I've paid them, I'll see who else lost money during the 12.5% that they imposed on us, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Some could say, yeah, but don't accept it. When you're running your own home, you can accept things. When you're for the masses, you got to think differently. You have to think differently, Mr. Chairman. So I don't need 30 minutes, Mr. Chairman, but as I said, it was up to me. I would not pay that fund absolutely to the Dutch government because they don't need it right now. As a matter of fact, I see where they're willing to give Ukraine some more money because he's right now, the president is, I think, in D.C. begging for more funds to help them out and so on without conditions. We were given conditions, though. Part of the kingdom, you're given conditions. Mr. Chairman, you know, I will leave it there for now because, you know, the whole thing is when you really understand what is going on, we on St. Martin have to stop allowing these so-called laws and Article 16 or 12 or whatever, Kingdom Charter and these things, we sit down and we bow our heads and say, well, that's how it's supposed to be. We got to find some time and tell ourselves, no mass. No mass. And if you think it's impossible, 3 little African countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, join together, tell France, bye-bye, we don't need you anymore, because you'll work together as one. And I think in Somalia, we start to work together as one to build this country. We can tell the Dutch, bye-bye, Mr. Chairman. But again, in closing, I just want to thank the ministries for the tremendous job that they're doing and the staff. And I want to say to civil servants, I've said this before and I'll repeat myself. When it comes to the people's work, you are civil servants. You might not like the minister that is there, he or she. But the fact remains, if you don't do what you have to do, then the masses suffer. And that's something I, as a civil servant for over 40 years, cannot understand. I had issues with my employer, which is Nelis and Tilly's. When it came to my job, I did my job. Almost 2 years out of the slide, but I did my job because why? I looked at the interest of the public. And I'm asking you, civil servants today, who are not doing it because the majority, I'm sure, are doing what I have to do. Please don't play politics. Look at who's been affected and do what you have to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George Vanterplet. The next person is MP Sarah Westcott Williams. MP Sarah Westcott, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning to you, Mr. Chairman, a good morning to my colleagues, a good morning to the ministers and their support staff, our support staff, those in the public tribune, a good morning to all tuned in to this meeting. Mr. Chairman, the handling, or at least the submission of the amended budget 2023 was held back, as it was stated on more than one occasion, in order to adjust some items in the budget and be able to pay the justice workers. There seemed to be, and I would like especially the Minister of Finance to confirm or rectify it, but the emphasis on the budget amendment seemed to have been with an increase in the medical cost for government overall that needed to be adjusted in the amended budget, and the payment to the justice workers. Subsequently, we learned, based on questions posed in the Central Committee meeting of Parliament on the budget, that the amount in the budget needed to be supplemented, so that's the amount to pay justice workers, with 700,000 guilders, and thus an approved amount, because, Mr. Chairman, it needs to be stated and emphasized that the government had an approved budget before it from earlier this year for 2.5 million guilders to pay out retroactive. It took the government months to do a recalculation and then to come to the decision that an extra 700,000 guilders was necessary to pay the retroactive. Mr. Chairman, there's something in our accountability ordinance that allows the minister and or the government to, if necessary, pay out beyond the budget that they have before them, and then to immediately thereafter ask for government's approval. The point that I want to make with this is that the government had 2.5 million guilders to pay the retroactive of justice workers since the budget of 2023 was approved. I have concluded from the statements from the ministers that the reason this was not utilized, so the 2.5 million approved in the budget was not utilized because the process for 2023 was not completed as far as the payment to justice workers are concerned. If I listened to the minister presentation this morning, the payment for 2023 to the justice workers, so January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, which in the calculation of government amounts to 3.2 million guilders, that is not nowhere close to happen yet. It's nowhere close to happen, and we are only talking about the payment for 2023, that 1 year, amounting to, in the government's calculation, 3.2 million guilders. So then my question is to the Minister of Finance, what is budgeted in the 2024 draft budget, which is not here by Parliament yet, so I can't answer that myself. I need to ask the government, what is budgeted in there? Because, Mr. Chairman, we were told in handling the approved budget 2023, we were told when we asked, well, why can't you pay all the justice workers? Why can't you increase the subsidy for the university? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? The overall question, or the overall answer to that question from all ministers, was that we're going to amend the budget eventually. We're going to look at our income, and we're going to amend the budget eventually. The government estimated, amongst other things, a tourist tax, a tourist fee, for 10 million guilders in the budget. The government, way below what is owed, estimated an amount in the approved budget 2023 for medical cost. So now this amended budget comes to government, and the overall argument that was used to amend the budget, namely the justice workers. And if Parliament doesn't come, and if Parliament does not come to the meeting, members of Parliament do not come to the meeting to approve the budget, and the justice workers got to get paid. And we had to increase it with 700,000 guilders. Mind you had a 2.5 approval already. But then the justice workers are not going to get paid. And so I ask the government again, now if this budget passes the way it is, when will the justice workers get their 2023 payment? And I heard the minister put it very nicely where the answer was to the question, so what happens with the payment that was received in 2020? And the minister said, it shall be consolidated. It shall be consolidated with the payment now. In other words, it will be deducted from the payment. It will be deducted from the payment due to the justice workers. That needs to be admitted. And the fact that it was done based on an MOU by whichever minister, it was paid out on a particular date in 2020. It was paid out. In fact is that the justice workers just need to be told it's going to be deducted, no consolidated, nothing. It's going to be deducted from what the justice workers are entitled to right now. So, Mr. Chairman, I would, again, I would like to know, so how does this reflect what we're doing now in when the justice workers can get paid? Two, I keep hearing the word irrevocable, when the LB becomes irrevocable. So you're going to have a group, persons who have objected or suggested corrections to be made in their name, justice workers. So you have to go through that whole process. Question, are these objections being taken into consideration? And if so, how? Because that's another category. That process needs to be finished before those persons then can get these individual LBs. Mr. Chairman, I want to reemphasize my question regarding 2024 and this process for payment of 2023. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Westcott Williams. The next person is MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague, members of Parliament, the Secretary General, to the honorable ministers and their team here, those within the Tribune, good morning, and those following by various media. Mr. Chairman, it is sometimes, I can understand it's election time and sometimes emotions or thoughts get a little lost into what our function and purpose here in Parliament is. Because from what I understood, I mean, I've only been here for 6 years. There are those longer than me in Parliament that understand that a public meeting convocation is based on one thing, an agenda point. In the case of a public meeting agenda that handles a national ordinance, you are here to ask questions on the national ordinance. Today we are handling the National Ordinance Budget 2023 amendment. We've had a Central Committee meeting. I've taken note of the answers in writing. And for me personally, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the presentation that is given, but I come already prepared to go into the nuances of the budget itself. Some of my questions have been already answered because of the presentation. I take a few things out of it that I might want clarity on, but I think the essence of why we're here today is because of a budget amendment. And I think at this point, after the Central Committee meeting, after hearing the presentations and some of the questions posed already, we know one of the central things that this is about. And that has to do with the payments, the retroactive payments, the multi-year increase to the cost of justice workers, and how the government believes that they will be able to meet that obligation, both the past obligation, but I think a part that I feel is a bit understated as a part of this amendment is the multi-year aspect of this law. Everybody seems to be focused on that one budget item that says retroactive payments. And I can understand that because until today, that has been the cry for many years. I know it very well, the rest of us know it very well, that they need to get their retroactive payments. I think it's been outlined pretty clearly that this is not going to be a situation that was done in the past, where it's just going to be a bulk thing that's going to go out again. From what I'm understanding, the process will be everybody will receive their decrees. When those decrees are done, then, or let's say irrevocable and finalized, that is when each individual can expect their payment. I think it's important for us to just set that baseline off the bat and ease the expectations of what people might think is coming. Because there are those that will try to make this, oh, this is an election stunt. They're just trying to pay everybody before election and all of that. What I think is happening is that the legal process is at this step. Now Parliament has a responsibility. And how that is being outlined to us is the information that I want to get, not for me, but for the clarity for our officers and our personnel within the Justice Ministry. Why I highlight that multi-year aspect, though, that I think is, in my opinion, the most crucial part of what this amendment has to address. Because one of the things when I first came into Parliament and we saw Justice Minister after Justice Minister trying to address this issue, the roadblock that was struck was, sure, we would love to sign this LBHAM and make a new exposition. Sure, we would love to give everyone their individual decrees. But the question no one dared on both sides of the floor to answer is, how are we going to pay for it? Mr. Chairman, why do I highlight that? In the Central Committee meeting, I posed a question that I think was very central to understand the state of where we are as a country financially, and why we can understand over the years, if we would just be honest with ourselves, that from 2010, we, the Parliament of St. Martin, sitting here approving budgets year after year, never made sufficient provisions for our entire justice ministry, both on the expense side and on the income side. Why do I say that? If we look at the question that I posed regarding the formation of KPSM, which is to be 333 full-time employees, and the frontline officers, currently 168 FTEs fill these positions in 2023. That is not a slight against anything other than the fact that we have not, over all these years, and in the transition from 2010, did not plan properly to ensure that, first of all, we're signing a CFT law that we're agreeing with, because we're going to be a country. But then year after year, we have to now struggle with a CFT that won't allow us to go into a deficit, for example, to pay our justice workers, or take loans, for example, to pay our justice workers, or raise the fees that we want, or do what we want. Every single time in Parliament, I remember you would hear a justice minister come say, I want to build a prison. We need to improve the facilities. We need to pay the police. And you read the CFT report, and what does it say? You don't have sufficient means. That is not a priority. Every single budget year after year. So the first step to counter this sort of blockade that you have, that I didn't agree to, none of us here didn't agree to, maybe some were part of that process, but I didn't agree to a CFT, and I still don't. But it is the law, and it is our process. But the only way we would have done this is to prove to the CFT that St. Martin is in a financial position, finally, to be able to cover these costs. And how do you do that? You do that by improving your economy, by having a stable government, by ensuring that you're collecting what you have to collect, by making sure you follow all these processes. That is why, for the first time, we have a budget amendment here that confidently, with the stamp of approval, is saying, go ahead for the next 3 years, and you continue what we're doing as St. Martin, that is able to finally bring stability to our country and our economy, to find the funds to be able to pay our officers and justice workers indefinitely for years to come. Mr. Chairman, I do want to add, and I asked this question in the Central Committee meeting, however, because, as I said, we have gone on the right track in being able to, at least, let's say we do the legal position and so on, but I personally would like absolute security, and where I can contribute to that, to make sure that we're finding every opportunity to make sure they get paid, that we are exploring those opportunities. Mr. Chairman, in the Central Committee meeting, I posed the question regarding the contributions of the airport and the harbor towards the services that are rendered to private companies for immigration and customs services. And I can understand that over the years, this is also something that has probably not gone checked. That in most countries, or many countries that I've checked, there is either a sort of fee that goes directly towards justice. You can use the TSA, for example. You can use Schiphol, for example. You can use Antigua as an example, where the government offsets the number of man-hours that is provided to the airport in order to ensure that these costs are being covered somewhat. Over the years, Mr. Chairman, I think we found, for example, the $1 for the security fee. I believe that is an example of something that can go towards ensuring we pay our justice workers. But we need to build on that. We need to come with solutions that ensure, regardless of hurricane, pandemic, or whatever, there is a fixed way to ensure that over these years we can meet this multi-annual goal of making sure that once these decrees are signed, their salaries are secured. In my opinion, Mr. Chairman, I think it is important for the government, I would say particularly the Ministry of TIAT, together with the Prime Minister if necessary, but we need to engage with these government-owned companies because the safety and security of St. Martin is paramount to them both. There is no harbor without customs. There is no airport without immigration. So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask once again to the government of St. Martin, if with the support of Parliament, they would engage with these government-owned entities to start ensuring that they can make some contribution, particularly towards the Justice Ministry, because it is one ministry. They do provide customs and immigration services, but we should start collecting from this. And that should also apply to those private docks as well that are also getting this service. Now, I can understand it is not to say that when the government provides police service in a public area or reports to you, think that means no. That's where your taxes come in. But I'm specifically singling out these large government-owned entities that are, as a matter of fact, collecting fees if we really strictly follow the law. The landing fees of the airport, for example, if you strictly follow the national ordinance, are to be collected by the government of St. Martin. But due to previous financial arrangements, I can understand that bond agreements, etc., have been signed to allow the airport to collect that. But that doesn't mean we should not find additional revenue streams to ensure that this service continues and our justice workers be paid. That would be my proposal. I believe that you can raise between all of these different entities 2 million guilders a year additionally to be able to ensure that we can meet this multi-annual goal of paying the justice workers what they deserve. Mr. Chairman, I think you can even go further, because one of the things I noticed in the 44 million is that one of the biggest beneficiaries, of course, other than the the justice workers themselves, is the SZV. Because the minute the government does this, the SZV is also doing this, because a significant amount of social premiums are to be collected from these retroactive payments, the taxes, etc. So I think consideration should also be given by the SZV to ensure that if there's possibilities for them to find some way to either finance future payments or whatever, but I think this needs an all-hands-on-deck situation in the future over this multi-annual period that's budgeted, that I'm encouraging the government to continue to seek these type of solutions to make this a sustainable venture for the people. I believe this step here is a good one and would have my support, but it would have my support on the promise that we are committed to continue to find real solutions, not excuses, not listening to the naysayers, but also empathetic to the needs of the individual officers. In that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask just one question. In the process of receiving their national decree, I think the minister mentioned it a little bit in her presentation, but I want to have a better understanding of what is the communication like for an individual officer after this passes. So do you get a letter informing you that, hey, we have an appointment for you to come and see your LB, and then I believe there's a period by law where they can decide if they agree or not. If the minister can give us an outline of what that process looks like so that all of our officers and justice personnel kind of know what to expect. Is it going to be an email? Is it going to be a letter? Is it going to be an appointment? Is it going to be a group meeting? Let's let them envision what they might be able to expect, and that they have a fair opportunity that in the event that there are some concerns or differences, what are the avenues for them to have those addressed? I think it's important for them to be able to know that that option exists. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask a few questions about GEBE. There were an abundance of questions posed by the members of Parliament. I think all of us, some way or the other, did talk about GEBE. And it is relevant to the 2023 budget, Mr. Chairman, because there is a significant amount of economic losses or potential gains dependent on the performance of GB. The fact is, Mr. Chairman, we have to acknowledge that there are many complaints and concerns within our society regarding GEBE. And I did note the answer to my question regarding, let me pull this one up. So I'd asked the question, Mr. Chairman, what specific, Mr. Chairman, can you just confirm to me how much time I have left? Okay. Oh, yes, 30, not 20. Thank you. I had posed the question, what specifically, or have we any ideas on proposed solutions that GEBE is making to compensate for all their mistakes and errors? This is a reflection of what many people in society want to know. And the answer we received is, of course, I believe from the government, but I would expect the tone of the way it is written comes from GEBE. GEBE recognizes the impact of system restoration challenges on billing accuracy and is actively working to address any errors. Customers are urged to submit all the necessary documentation to rectify these issues. Now, this is the canned response that you see on social media and in the newspaper from GB that, hey, if you have a problem, just come in and solve it. But in practice, Mr. Chairman, we have a real situation where some people are trying to send this information. In the meantime, facing potential disconnection while they're trying to solve the fact that there is an error. Mr. Chairman, I think the only real solution maybe can come from the next part of the answer. Regarding consumer relief, GB remains open to dialogue and is exploring viable solutions considering the current economic situation. Nonetheless, the responsibility of consumers to pay their bills promptly and manage their energy usage cannot be understated. Let me address the last part first, Mr. Chairman. I think our population does not get enough credit for, even if it is just on the fear of disconnection, how if bills are properly given, they meet their obligations to GEBE. In other words, if GEBE is functioning 100%, I would venture to guess, especially with the threat of disconnection, that more than 90% of our people would pay their bills. So if it is our concern is that people are not coming in to pay their bills, partially can be due to economic issues, but that has now been a little better over the last year. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that people are receiving wrong bills. They do not have confidence in what they're receiving. They have been making payments when they were told, go ahead and make your payment, and we're going to register it. And then they get a bill for 10,000 gallons, and it's like, but wait, I did not get my payment registered on the receipt. So while I understand what GB is saying, yeah, everybody has to pay their bills, but GB has a responsibility to give correct bills. So if both sides are not fulfilling their responsibility, in my opinion, government has to step in for the people. And Mr. Chairman, I believe we have to seriously consider, especially considering that this 2023 budget becomes the active budget by law if we don't have an approved 2024 budget when January 1st comes. This is the budget that's going to be used from January 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that GEBE and the government have to come with a very serious relief program for our people, in which the people of St. Martin have suffered for quite some time. We have a budgeted amount of 6.5 million guilders that is supposed to come from GB to the government, and I do not think now is an opportune time for the government of St. Martin to be taking that money out of GB. Mr. Chairman, I think that money should be deferred to future years, and at this time, on the condition that GEBE allocates that towards a relief program for our citizens to compensate for all these errors, to create a bad debt account because some of these will become uncollectible. But now is not the time to take money out of GB. Now is the time to ensure that people really receive relief and have the opportunity to relieve such. So I believe that in the 2024 budget, but considering that the 2023 budget is done, I would like to know at what point in the calendar year is GB expected to pay their concession fee to government? Because I would need to know, based on this answer, on how much time we have to be able to ensure that this needs to be put on hold until GB can figure out a way to provide relief for our people. Because all of us understand, we all get the cries out there, but we are the Parliament of St. Martin. We are the ones that determine the budget of the country. And I can understand where the government is going to look at me, and understandably so, but we have civil servants to pay. We have expenses. Yes, we do. But if it's one area, we should not look to raise money at this moment, considering what has happened at GB. It's not from GB. Because, for example, when I received the answer from the minister on the tourist levy, The tourist levy now is at its final step, because this had already received advice from the Council of Advice. One of their major things was allow the SER to review this. Now it is just pending the SER advice, and we're very realistic that we can get this passed within 2024. So let's go collect from the tourists instead of collecting from our power company and our people, for example. Let's create a timeline for when this tourist levy would pass to when GB is owed this concession, and instead pass that relief on to the people of St. Martin. I would like the position of the government on this proposal, and as GB has stated here, they remain open to dialogue. Is the government going to have this dialogue based on my recommendation today? Mr. Chairman, there's a couple other things that I asked about, and one of the things I know that has been very popular out there because of the concern that has caused is regarding Revolut. Mr. Chairman, I've since done significant research into this matter, and I've come to the conclusion that based on our own legislation, there is no law preventing people from St. Martin, residents of St. Martin, from using online banking services. If an online bank wishes to list St. Martin on their service, some countries have very specific legislation about the listing of it. And the interpretation of one tax lawyer that I went to, who was also very familiar with the central bank legislation, that is not targeted, the Article 2 of the Central Bank Ordinance is not targeted to being able to list your services. Similarly, like how you would need a retail license to open a store in Phillipsburg and sell shoes, but Amazon does not need that same license to sell those goods online, it is the same thing. And I really hope that we can continue to open the market to St. Martin and the access to our local people to be able to use these international e-commerce services, combined with our own efforts to develop it locally. Because there are limitations to what the Parliament and the government can tell the banks to do. And they have not been innovating when it comes to e-commerce. We know the government and the Ministry of Finance has been trying, and that is a very commendable effort. And I believe that that will blossom simultaneously with the services that we have internationally as well. So I believe that it is very important that if what I said is incorrect, if that can be verified with the central bank, but my information says otherwise, and I hope that these services continue to be able to make themselves available to the people of St. Martin. Because if this is a very scary precedent that might start to be set, where people that make their money on YouTube and Spotify and Shopify and all of these services may now be at risk. Finally, Mr. Chairman, this is just honestly not really a budget-related question, but it was a question that falls under the Ministry of Justice that I never really thought about. It might be directed more to the Ministry of Justice or perhaps the General Affairs Minister. For someone that has been born on the French side of St. Martin, but not registered on the Dutch side of St. Martin, are they able to get a driver's license on the Dutch side of St. Martin? And if not, why? We understand that we have various people within our country that migrate between both sides of the island. Maybe we have even a member of parliament that was basically lived his family lived their entire life on the Dutch side, and circumstances had it that they were born on the French side. But is it that someone born on the French side of St. Martin, registered on the Dutch side, not having a Dutch passport, can they apply for a driver's license? So I'll say it again. Born on the French side, living on the Dutch side, so not a Dutch national, can they apply for a driver's license? So do the exam and get a driver's license on the Dutch side of St. Martin. Because I've received some questions about that, and I want to do that good to the community for those that have been faced with that question. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank both the Ministers of Finance and the Minister of Justice and the entire Council of Ministers for being able to bring at least some clarity to what is happening with our justice workers. I think the part of the presentation that I would hope is most welcome to the justice workers is the overtime regulation. When I look at this and I look at the presentation from the minister on the before and after, that is a very significant step, especially when we consider the reality of where we're supposed to be with 300 plus FTEs and we're far below that, then these men and women are going to be engaged in overtime hours. But to see a new level of compensation for them that is significantly more, I think I saw an example of it once being, this may be at the administrative function, but I saw something at 4 cents, and then I think, man, that must be like 1,000% increase that we've seen there. Yeah, here it is. Dark hours before, 4 kilocents. Am I reading that right? And we are now at 4 guilders. Very well done. Very well done. I think this is an important part of the aspect that will raise the remuneration and the motivation for our officers to give that extra go that we need right now. Because as we continue to raise the economy, improve the economy, raise the income from our taxes, then we can continue to deal and tell the CFT, relax, I can afford to hire 30 more, 40 more, 50 more, 100 more officers. But in the meantime, we will be depending on these justice workers to do the overtime, and this part of the regulation that is to be signed, if I understand correctly, with the approval of this budget, almost for that and that alone, this budget would have my support, because it will keep St. Martin safe in order to ensure that they receive what they deserve for the extra time that they put. But there are many other aspects. I've asked some of my questions, and with that, I believe that we will be able to take the right steps for our justice workers. I would just like to add to it to ensure that on a long-term, multi-year level, we ensure that the money is there to pay them. Mr. Chairman, once again, thanks to the government, and thanks to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. The next person is MP Rayon Peterson. MP Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A good afternoon to yourself, to the honorable ministers present and the support staff, to my honorable colleagues and everybody else tuned in. Mr. Chairman, I actually disagree with some of my colleagues. I do believe that this is a campaign stunt. The timing is impeccable, and given the fact that the exact same thing happened 4 years ago without a legal basis, I have my own opinion on it. But I digress. I also had some questions that pertains to the budget as well, because this is a budget that I voted against, and for many reasons, and some of them will be highlighted maybe in round 2. But a question to the Minister of Romi, through you, Mr. Chairman. In August of this year, I believe that there was a case regarding the over-the-bank situation, which the Minister of Romi was involved. In that case, it was determined that without a clear policy or some transparency or a fair process, that the issuances of long lease parcels would have to be put in the back seat. However, I am getting reports from the public that at this current moment, that the minister is instructing people to go pay for a maid brief and asking them for information regarding the exact same piece of land. Therefore, I would want some clarity on that. And also, Mr. Chairman, for the same ministry, there are also speculations that a parcel of water of approximately more than 8,000 square meters in the area of Kubukoi, I believe the maid brief was made in 2007. That is also in the works to be given off a long lease. While, you know, we have heard what the notaries have said this year, we have read the deedam arrest. It is practically impossible for notaries to issue a deed right now for a new piece of long lease land. And I just want to know if the Minister of Romi has taken any of that into consideration. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Also, another question that I had pertaining to the budget is maybe one for the Minister of Finance and Teyat. It's regarding the contract that we just got for the tourist office building. And what MP Emmanuel said last time, the high rent. I believe the rent in the contract is about more than $27,000 a month, which would add up to more than $300,000 a year. And I would just like to know if it is the intention of this government, you know, given the fact that in the civil code in Holland, if you sign a lease agreement or a rent agreement or whatever, a huurcontract, it doesn't matter what the price is in the agreement say, you can always take it to the judge and let the judge decide if said price is reasonable or not. And I would just want to know if it is the intention of this government to do that with this same lease contract, or if it was just decided that we are going to give one specific company more than $200,000 a year for the next 5 years. And I also want to note, Mr. Chairman, that, again, I do want to reiterate, I voted against this budget for many reasons, and one of them is the legality of things. I am one that is not here to lower the standards of Parliament, and in 3 days, I think, as per the 15th of December, we're supposed to have a vastgestelde begroting as per Article 14 of the Rijkswet CFT for the new budget, and yet we are here busy with a wijziging from the previous budget. And within that same article, it says that if that does not happen, then we might get an instruction. So pardon me if I don't have the same positive outlook on today as the other MPs, Mr. Chairman, because I do feel that they are using the police for political benefit, and I am here saying it live on the floor of Parliament, because 4 years ago, this is exactly what happened. We saw what happened 4 years ago, and instead of rectifying what happened then, we are now trying to legitimize what is going on now, but still no accountability has been given for what happened 4 years ago. So that'll be all from me in round one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Rian Peterson. Anyone else? The next person is MP Hyacinth Richardson. MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the persons in the Tribune here with us today. Good afternoon to everyone who's following and to my colleague. Mr. Chairman, we are getting closer. We are getting closer for what have not been done for over a decade. And for the persons in blue, the men and women in blue, who have been working very hard for this country since the inception of police officers in our country. And a bad deal was given to them over the years. But today, we have seen the minister come here, and we are practically noticing how closer it will be. And it will be by the passing of this budget. And for those who don't want to pass this budget because they're not part of government, I will say to them, remember, this budget takes care of all civil servants, and this budget takes care of teachers and many other persons in this community. Mr. Chairman, I know I was approached some months ago when there was a tournament between St. Martin and many other islands. I think there was 5 or 6 islands on the Rahul Illich Sport Complex, and how terrible the field was for these young athletes. Today, we understand that that too will be a thing of the past, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to the government for putting in the work and finding the resources, finding the funding for these events to take part, and that they will have a professional field to play the sport. We have seen the same one where John Cooper House Lake Ballpark, the lights is back on. Maybe some other lights have to be put up, but these are positive things that is happening for our athletes. While at it, pertaining sports, we have seen our own very Mr. Casey Catty, who have batted in 50 runs for the West Indian team to beat England in a 50-over match. So congratulations to the West Indian team and our own very St. Martino, Casey Catty. Congratulations. Mr. Chairman, it is high time that we put politics aside. This is not a time for politics. It's what due to them. The minister and her team worked tirelessly to make this happen. And Mr. Chairman, I will say today, because of certain persons who knew they was going to run in politics and being president of the union, the police union, this is what gave the minister a bad deal over her hard work in her achievement. So, Mr. Chairman, I can stay here long, but I won't be here long because I want to see this budget amendment passed for the people of St. Martin and to give them the opportunity to go out there and do certain things they want for their family, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for that, I will leave it for now. Thank you for offering me the time to speak direct to our people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Richardson. The next person is MP Ludmila De Wever. MP Ludmila De Weaver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to you, Griffier, the ministers and their support staff here present, those in the tribune, as well as my honorable colleagues here today. Minister, I'm going to Mr. Chair, I'm going to reserve the majority of my questions for the second round, but I do want to ask the same thing I asked last week in the CC. Again, I am receiving updates per various ministries, not just the Ministry of Justice, that agreed amounts are said to be paid out this month. Again, I will ask the same question. It is maybe the third time I'd have magic in the answer. I would like to know what has been promised to the civil servants regarding their COLA or cost of living adjustment, and what is expected of that payout, at what date, and what amount, and over which time period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Ludmila De Weaver. I will now adjourn for 5 minutes to caucus with Minister and get back. Meeting adjourned. Good afternoon and welcome back. After discussing with the Minister of Finance, who's going to be ready to answer his first round questions at 2:30. So we adjourn the meeting for lunch until 2:30 p.m. Meeting adjourned.